Hey guys, welcome to Hughes History. We're doing a somber one this time. We're doing Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, the day that will live in infamy. We'll do a little bit of backdropping. We'll take a look at the event itself and then kind of the effects of the event, why in the long run it's going to be a bad idea for the Japanese. So giddy up for the learning, guys. Why don't you come with me as we get started right now? So guys, I would start with the fact that Japan is our ally in World War I, as is China. The friction really doesn't begin until Woodrow Wilson shows up at the Paris Peace Conference, really trying to get a good deal from China, and kind of the Treaty of Versailles, you remember, League of Nations, all of that stuff. And Japan, of course, is already thinking about themselves, like all nations does, and really about natural resources, specifically oil. So it really isn't until the 1930s. They did show up to the 1921 Washington Naval Conference of World Powers and a demilitarization conference, but really by the early 30s, they're thinking about Asians for Asians. They don't see why we should have the British or the French or the United States in their hood when they should be ruling their own roost. That's their philosophy. So maybe it's because there's a weakened state in Europe and the United States. There's Great Depressions going on. But by 1931, they take their first imperialistic action by going into Manchuria. By 1936, 1937, they're into eastern coastal cities in China. We have the Nanking Massacre with over 250,000 Chinese, of genocide by the Japanese. And then really the kind of final straw. We're still trading oil with them, by the way. It's 1940 where we're going to cut off their oil and put them in a position where they feel as though they have to attack because they went into French Indochina. Today, that's Vietnam. But France was invaded by the Nazis. The Japanese saw an opportunity. They go into Indochina for natural resources, and we cut off their oil. And then there are deep negotiations throughout 1940. The summer of 1940, high-level negotiations. The Japanese prime minister wanted to come and meet with FDR. FDR refused. And even until November of 1940, there's negotiations going on. November 8th, Emperor Hirohito gives his permission for the military of Japan to start planning the attack. And our final kind of communications with them is November 26th, where we have the Hull Note, where we basically send them a letter that says, get out of China, stop imperializing, we'll give you oil, it'll all be good. And of course, Japan's not going to do that. We're not going to get into the conspiracy theory. We're not doing it. Go Google a video or something. There are certainly conspiratorialists out there that believe FDR absolutely knew there was going to be an attack on Pearl Harbor, that he only put old battleships there. He's anticipating an aircraft war, carrier war. That's why the aircraft carriers weren't there. There's no hardcore evidence. Most mainstream historians would say that, if anything, that FDR was goading them into attacking us, and he probably thought it was going to be in the Philippines, but that, as president, he didn't, allow an attack to happen on the homeland. But if anything, the Japanese are certainly doing deceptive diplomacy, planning their attack when they're still negotiating with us. But yada, 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 December 7th, 1941, it's going to occur. Let's take a look at the attack right now. So let's look at the why first. I think Japan attacks Pearl Harbor for three reasons. Number one, they're under the guise that this is going to be a war that's going to be won by battleships. They have read Admiral Alfred Mahan's famous book, The Influence of Sea Power, and they believe that if the battleships are at Pearl Harbor, sink the battleships, and we'll be able to control Southeast Asia for our own imperialistic reasons. Number two, they think that this is going to knock the United States back on their feet in terms of morale. The United States is going to think we can't mess with Japan. Of course, it's not going to work. But again, they're trying to throw us back off our feet so they can control Southeast Asia for their own imperialistic reasons. And number three, they know that once they get the United States into war, the tripartite treaty, which they've signed with Germany and Italy, is going to throw these two honey badgers on the United States back and keep them busy enough so they can control Southeast Asia. Now let's take a look at the specifics of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Well, a little bit.
Hawaiian
So at 7:43 a.m. on December 7th, 1941, two humongous waves begin, which are led by 6 aircraft carriers and 353 Japanese fighter planes. And it's not just an attack on Pearl Harbor. Within, I think it was like 12 hours, they're going to attack Malaya and the Philippines, the Wake Islands, and Guam and Hong Kong. So it's a multi-pronged attack, but Pearl Harbor is going to be the biggest. They're going to knock out 18 ships. They're going to sink 8 battleships, only one fatally, which is the U.S. Arizona, but they're They're going to kill 2,403 American soldiers, half on the Arizona, and they're going to knock out 188 airplanes. So it's a tremendous attack, and it's tremendously painful. We, on the other hand, 29 airplanes that we shot down, 5 subs, 62 Japanese lost their lives. So in terms of a devastating attack, it's going to be it. And of course, the next day, FDR is going to give his famous Day in Infamy speech. Congress is going to immediately deliver a declaration of war, and within a couple days, we're going to be at war not only with Japan, but of course with Germany and Italy. So let's take a look at why the attack isn't all that it's cracked up to be. There's a few reasons why this isn't going to be the attack that's going to win the war for Japan, obviously, but the number one reason is we already had a plan, Plan Dog, which basically stated that we weren't going to worry about Southeast Asia, that if there is a war, we're going to concentrate on Europe, and then we'll knock Japan out when we're done. We evacuated the Philippines, for goodness sake. Number two, there's no third wave. The Japanese left an incredible amount behind that they didn't knock out. The subdocks and the intelligent headquarters and all of the dockyards where they're going to fix the ships. And also, Pearl Harbor is quite a shallow harbor, so these boats aren't going to be incredibly difficult to pull out. But the biggest reason is that this isn't going to be a war that's going to be won by battleships. It's going to be won in the sky. It's going to be won by aircraft carriers, and the United States has a whole bunch, and they're not at Pearl Harbor that day. So in the long run, the Japanese are going to not only antagonize the United States, but the United States has a plan to island hop eventually into Japan. Of course, we're going to bomb them with the 2 atomic bombs. We don't know that yet, but this battleship scenario, Alfred Mahan, your time is gone. So there you go, guys. We hope you understand the basics of Pearl Harbor, why it's significant, and why at the end of the day, Japan isn't going to win World War II because they attacked Pearl Harbor. So there you go, guys. If you have a comment, leave it below. Did FDR know? I don't know if he knew, maybe you know, or you have something else to say about this lecture or Pearl Harbor. And of course, if you're not subscribed to Hughes History, what are you doing? I don't even want to look at you. I'm going to look over there. Just click the stupid red button right there, and then you go fly through the internet and you subscribe to YouTube and such. Or go to hiphughes.com where the videos are all nicely organized and we have all other kinds of fun stuff for the kiddies. So there you go, guys. We'll see you next time that you press my buttons. And I always say it, where attention goes, energy flows.